Good morning, everybody. So, everybody can hear me, right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, today is August 26th, and this is our fourth lecture in this session. So, so before we start, let me give an announcement. Okay, your final exam will be in campus. Okay, your final exam, you need to come in campus. So there will be an assigned room for your final exam. This will be in face-to-face. Maybe still we will be using using D2L for the test, but you have to come in campus. Okay, so before our final exam, we will make that announcement again. So please be prepared for the final exam time. It will be announced ahead of time. Okay. And then one thing is that I uploaded a newer version of the course syllabus. This is called version 3.0. Okay, I added this. So there is one minor change that I discussed in our last lecture. So I have assigned 5% point for class attendance and active participation. Okay. So my expectation is that this class, online class, will be interactive. It's not that I will be speaking and you will be listening only. So we like this class interactive, so that you speak out whatever issue you face or whatever not thing you do not understand. So I have assigned 5% point for the assignment. So I reduced 5% from the assignments. For class class attendance, I have assigned 5%, and then previously this was assignment was 25%. Now it is 20%. Okay. So from next week we will be keeping attendance. I will find a way how to find the attendance, how to take the attendance. Okay. Maybe what I will do, sometime I will take a screenshot. Okay.
I believe you can hit it's next to the chat button. It looks like two silhouettes of people to the left. And
Yeah.
hit show participants. And it'll show a list of everyone. That way nobody's missed.
I think there is a download attendance list. I downloaded last time, but where it was downloaded. I will check it out. Okay, I will check. So so my goal is to encourage you to attend in class. Okay, although I will be I said I will be uploading lecture video, but not instantly. I will take one day at least time, or I will do it in the weekend, so that you join in the lecture, so you do not rely on the online video.
Professor,
As
I do have
yes,
a question. I don't know if I'm the only one in the class right now, but I'm having issues getting 100 on the quiz 0, the one that's about the syllabus. Because with all the changes that have been made, I'm not sure which version the answers are attached to.
okay, no, that's the version, the recent version I added in the syllabus does not have any conflict with the quiz question. I saw that one student sent me an email that he or she was missing some points. So in the one, there was a question that is there any compensation for missing test? You said no. This yes, because if you miss a test, right, then the final exam will compensate that with 20% penalty. That means you will receive 80% from your final exam. So maybe that one is a misunderstanding to you.
I think he's talking about the percentages of the grades.
Sorry?
I think he's talking about the percentage of the grades since you changed it.
Let me go to the quiz.
I just took the quiz 0, and the assignment still shows 25% for the quiz. So
Okay, so I will fix it. The assignment, what percent of?
question 3.
Okay, maybe to change this one. For the assignment. Okay, now it will be right.
Yeah.
Previously it was 20%. Okay. Quizzes have 25%. So is there any extension makeup for the quizzes? No. Penalized for 10% penalized for during extended deadline period for the assignment. This question is this one. Is there any makeup or compensation? Is there any compensation? Actually, let me make it compensation. For the missing test. Yes, there is a compensation by the final exam, right? Okay, with 20%. Now it should be fine. Okay, that is a silly question. That is a silly quiz. It was just I added just to encourage you to read the syllabus in my communication policy. Okay, so let us go to our regular class today session today. So as we are in last week, we are discussing chapter 2, right? Object-oriented programming and C++. As we know that C++ is considered one of the pioneer or first generation object-oriented programming language. So now you will see there are a lot of there are many programming languages, object-oriented programming languages like Python, F#, Java, C#, but C++ is pioneer. Actually, object-oriented programming. I learned object-oriented programming with C++ during 1995 or 96 at that time. So then when I learned Java later, I switched to Java because Java seems to me better, easier in programming. Okay. So in our last lecture, what we discussed, in our last lecture, we discussed in our last lecture, we discussed that in C++, we can write a program, non-object oriented program, non-object, that procedural program, because we know that C++ is a programming language that has part, it has a part, like we know this is C++, and there is, it's called another language. This is C, and this is called C++. Actually, okay, or maybe C++ plus has more, or C has some. This is C language. So as we discussed that in C++, in C++ compiler, you can write a program which like is simple program without any class. Okay, like if we run this program, let me see this program. Okay, so this program, this is a very simple C++ program. Okay, so it has no class. This is non-object oriented program, I will say. Okay, so this program, this first line, it says include IOStream. IOStream is used, this is a library file, we need to include it in order to use any statement that is related to input output. So here we have this statement, output statement, so we need to use this class, this library. Okay, and you see that this is called std standard, and this is scope operator : This means cout is defined, the functionality of cout is defined in the standard namespace. Namespace is an area, a space where you have defined. So in case like you every time you should use like this standard std : cout. So then for instance std : cout, then 2 less than sign, and then ENDL, end line. That means end line is similar to like this, \n is new line. Yeah, something like this. So instead of ENDL, oh I'm sorry, like this, ENDL, we can write this one, \n, and then what will, if you say hello, if you say welcome again, then it will come up like this. So if you run this program, see that the first line it says hello world, and then after that there is a new line already. So this new line, and there is another new line. So the first new line is bringing the cursor next line, and here it is another new line. So there is a blank line over here. After this here, okay, welcome again, there is no new line, so the cursor is staying over here, the same line. But if we give another new line over here, \n, then you will see the cursor will come next line. So after here, it's next line. So every time we are using standard std colon colon, instead of writing this, we can write one single statement using namespace std. This okay is needed to be after the include statement, and then in that case you do not need to write in std. So then it's easy. Now it is easy. Okay, you may have this or you may not have this. Now so this is non-object oriented programming in C++, but we learned that C++ is an object oriented programming language, like, and we will practice also object oriented programming language with C++ in this course. So in our last lecture we also discussed two programs like two variation of a single program. Okay, like this one. The first variation is that the first format is that this program, it is an object oriented program, right? It has, how do we know that it's an object oriented program? It has a class. If a program C program contains a class, then we in general call this is an object oriented program. Okay, so what is an object? Okay, who can give me a definition of an object?
It's a template from which you create objects. Or did you say object or class?
Object.
Oh, that's just the representation of real world data that you want to model.
So in programming, we call object oriented program. Object oriented programs, or we say object oriented. So we say object oriented programs or object oriented programming languages. So main thing our startup is object, right? So what is an object? That is my question. Okay, an object in real life, in physics, we call a particle, right? An entity that has some characteristics or features, and that is used to do something, right? In real life, like a man, a person, as a human being, I'm an object. A chair is an object, a table is an object, right? Everything in and around we see, a tree, a building is an object. Each of these is an object. A pen and pencil, a computer, a table, chair, these are objects, right? So object in real life, an entity. Okay, and our concept in object-oriented programming is that we will develop a program in similar fashion that we in real life deal with object. In real life, for instance, there are some objects that are not visible, right? But they are very powerful. For instance, our Wi-Fi connection, oxygen, carbon dioxide, this many kind of gas, right? The Ethernet. We see that there are many things, Wi-Fi connection, internet connection, Wi-Fi signal, internet signal. These are not visible, but these are very powerful, right? And useful. So in real life, so that we deal with object and object-oriented programming. The concept is that we will be programming, we will be writing programs. So more likely that we deal in object in real life. For instance, when we build a building, right? So a building is an object, itself is an object, but this object is the integration of many other objects, right? Like a window object, a building has some windows, some doors, right? Some walls, floor, and many other things, many other objects. So in combination of this object, we develop a builder object, a larger object. The whole universe is an object, right? So in object-oriented programming, our concept is that, for instance, in real life, if we have an object, for instance, a building has 10 window objects. Okay, so how a building is built? Whenever um, a person build a building, so he or she knows the measurement of a standard window. So he keeps that space empty from the wall, and then sometime later, he buys some windows on that according to that measurement and put on that empty space. So as long as with that, for instance, the windows or objects are built separately in separate factories, okay, and they are used in different buildings. So like we are dealing with objects in real life, same thing in object-oriented programming. The concept is that we will have a class. A class is a template of many objects. And then when we develop a class, we will be using that class to create an instance of that class. An instance of a class is called an object. So here last time in our last lecture we saw that this is a class throttle is a class, and you see that this is the start of line number 10 with parentheses, and we will see that if we go down we will see what is the closing. Okay, so here line number 10, if you take your cursor over here, then you see the line number 32, it shows that the ending. So this class starts here and it ends here. It ends in C++, it ends with the semicolon. Other languages many other languages do not put this ending semicolon. C++ needs this. So this is a throttle is a class or template of an object. Now later, so these are the implementation of these class methods, and here in the main method, okay, you see that I have throttle. I'm using throttle object, throttle class to create object like sample is an object, T1 is an object, T2 is an object, T3 is another object. Now we are using this object to call the methods, the class members, okay, member functions. So we know that a class contains two things, right? What are the things, elements of a class? Some variables here, position and top position, these are the variable, integer type variable, and some functions. Throttle is a function, throttle is another function, and this is shut off is a function, and shift is a function. How do we know that this is a functional method? After the name, if we see a parenthesis, then this is a function. A function defined or declared in a class is called a method. In general, it's a method. This is a method, shift is another method, flow is another method, is1 is another method. But after flow, we see that const, another constant. That means this method cannot change something of class property, but it can return something that it can tell something, but it cannot change. Like is on method, it will tell whether this is something related to this class is on or off. So it returns a Boolean type, that means that returns either true or false value. So we can say if it returns true value, then we say that it is 1. If it returns false value, then we say that this is not 1. Okay. Similarly, flow will tell something. And these, the ending semicolon is over here. It says this method just over here is declaration. This body is not implemented here, over here. And here also this says that it is only declaration, and this is also declaration with definition together, because with the body. So if you have declaration and definition together, that you cannot put semicolon over here. You cannot put, this will be mistake. Okay. So that we discussed that a class contains two things, some variables. Here the variables are declared later, so I can move it to the top, no problem. And so you say that here we say private. That means these position and top position, these are private to the throttle class. This variable will be accessed only through a method of this throttle class. This cannot be accessed by other outside member. So private clone means that is we declare private, and then we call on that whatever until we change the from private to public. This is access modifier we call. Until we change it to something else, we cannot. All this private. So this is private and this is private. And whenever we say this is public, so this is public method, this is public method. Okay, this method is public, this method is public, this method is public, this method is public. So here, this is the just declaration of the class here until here, from 10 to 31, this line. And you see that intentionally I put something. This method is declared and defined together within the class, but this one only declared, not defined, because there is no body here. Body start with semicolon, with curly brace. But if we do not declare it here, define it here, then we can do it later. So for instance, after the class, outside of the class, we are defining these and these methods, other methods we are defining here. So here if we define outside of the method, then we need to use this one, throttle : : This is called scope operator. This means the shift method is defined, is declared within the throttle class. So if you go to throttle class, you will see that there is a shift method over here. But this program has is everything the class here inside, and the main method is declared in one file, in a single file, over here. So this program will work, but this kind of program, if it is a large program, then it will be very, very large. For a complicated program, very, very large file. So now what we do, we can split this program into some subparts. For instance, what we can do, we can declare our class in another file. We call this is called header file. Okay, so that our next version that we discuss, this one, throttle header file example 1 C++. This program we discussed in our last lecture. We splitted this program. You see that it starts with main, only it has main method. This main program, only it has main method. Okay, and we do not have the class declaration part here. So where is the class declaration part? Usually in the header file. See the header file. So these are actually commented. We can read it or we do not read it. The header file, it start with this one. If not defined, this is then is a macro. It's called a macro, right? A macro in a program or an application contains some other things. Okay. So this macro is defined over here. So if not defined, then define macro. Then it start over here in line number 35 and all the way in. You see that it is ended. That is the end of this macro. Okay, now we are using another, we are declaring our own namespace. As we saw that in our program, we use standard namespace, that is built-in namespace. But we will be using this namespace as well as we will be creating our own namespace. So what is the namespace I give? Okay, this is a user-defined name. Okay, it's unique name, whatever you give. Okay, main service, the author of the book that we are following, he kept this name. Okay, I can give any name. I could give my name or I can give your name. It's fine. Okay, so a namespace, this is the start of namespace in line number 39 and it ends in line number 77. Okay, and within this, now this is 78. Within this namespace, you can have multiple classes. So we have our throttle class over here, the class, the entire thing, we put it here, we moved it here. So our program in the main method, it is small now. It is concise, you see that? It is easy to read, to make changes. And the header file, we can use this header file in any other program. Not only this program, in other program we can use this. Okay, and how do we use this header file? And especially we will using the namespace, because the header file, it has a namespace. So inside the namespace, what are declared over here? Just writing a simple statement using namespace main service. This is our namespace. I'm using this one. I'm calling this one over here. So then our program become concise. So that was what we discussed in our last lecture, and I asked you to practice this program. Okay, did you have a chance to look at this program? How many of you did?
Yeah, I looked it over.
A little bit.
We did.
Yeah, I mean, as you read the chapter, it breaks down the program pretty thoroughly.
Something new, right? So if you come from Java, C#, right? Or if you know other languages, if C++ is new to you, then that means something maybe at this point is difficult, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely new.
Yeah, definitely new. But interestingly, what happened? We will learn in this course a new language, C++ also. Okay, you will be familiar with the new language. Ultimately, by the time you graduate in computer science or software engineering, you will be learning languages.
Can you kind of explain the header guards? You know, the if, in, def, define, hash define.
This one?
Yeah. I kind of understand what the goal of them are, but that's about it.
Macro. This is called macro. The macro. So, have you ever used macro in MS Word?
No, I don't think so.
Macro in MS Word, for instance, you can, if you write something in your text, for instance, if you have something text, right? If you have, it has a font name, font size, okay, and then whether it is bold or unbold or italicized or not italicized. So sometimes if we change it, if we need to change it, we change one by one manually, right? But if we can create a macro with some shortcut key. For instance, I can create a macro that I will assign it with Walter plus P, the keyboard P. We know that if we press Control plus P, that it comes with printing, right? But Walter plus P, Wal plus P, maybe is not defined yet. So then you can create your macro for in MS Word. That is something recording. And when you select something and run the macro, but just by pressing that keys, so Alt plus P, and then all changes that you wish that you recorded in a macro will be implemented here. It's a very shortcut way. Sometimes when I type, I do formatting, I use macro. So you can record your own macro in MS Word. You can look for do Google search and see how to create a macro in MS Word. It's easy. So something here in program in C++. Here we say this is a macro, definition of macro. If this macro is not defined, then we define it. So now let us see, this macro is start in line number 35, right? And it ends in line number 80. So let us think that we do not have it, for instance, here. If we do not have it, so how do we write? Comment out, right? Okay. Then let us see what will happen. So if you run this program, main program, sometime it will work. And then, okay. So if we run this program, okay, it is working now. And then, but the main intention of the we will see later. We will see later when we go our larger programs. So then we will see that it is needed and recommended. It's recommended.
So if we wanted to use throttle class in a different file or throttle header in a different file, we can't. We need to only define it one time. The namespace one time.
Yeah. So this is another issue. So namespace. We are coming from. Yeah. Let me finish the macro. So macro is over here, defined over here. Okay. This is standard format of recommended format. Okay. So macro, even if we see that if we do not have it, we can still run our program. But this is a standard way to declare a header file. Now let us come to the next thing. This is called namespace. So namespace, you can give any namespace over here. Okay, so then we can say, so it's different names. So for instance, we can say TA chapter here, chapter 2 namespace, NP. NSP namespace, or whatever name you gave. Okay, so then here, now if we run this program, you will see that we have a different name, right? So I have not fixed the namespace yet. So now if I want to run this program, it is giving me error, right? For instance, here it is not finding throttle class. Where is the throttle class? And it is actually not, it is not finding this namespace. So if we write that namespace name over here, chapter 2 namespace, okay, this one, the name whatever we gave, maybe namespace on one, say, sorry, we can say chapter 2 namespace 1, whatever we say, that namespace 1. Now we give the same namespace. Now if we run this program, it will be fine. Here the concept is that this is a part of the program. Okay, this is a broad part of the program. So whatever you do have within this namespace, you can bring it here in your other file, just writing this on the single line. Later we will see that in our class we can have multiple methods. In a namespace we may have multiple classes. Okay, for instance, if we have another class, let me bring another example.
Would you be able to have multiple namespaces?
Yeah, I can have multiple namespaces. Let me bring another pencil class example on CBP. I have one here. I have another class, pencil class, in another program. Okay, so let me get you. So after this throttle class, I want to add one more class. I'll set here. This is called pencil class. I don't know the name right now. This is pencil class. We start in line number 79 and it line number 151. This is a large class. Okay. For now, we are not discussing this. You don't need to understand this. But let me run our main program.